nah, hey, look, man, Eminem is Eminem, and I like Eminem. He's one of the fucking good MCs, great MCs. He rap fella, you know what I'm saying? Vicky. He do all that shit, Eminem. And I used to think Eminem was better than me.
So what you saying right now?
He's not. Challenge it.
Game, you don't want to go versus against
Yes,
Eminem.
I do. What do you mean? Yeah, I do. The fuck you mean? So what you trying to say? Hey, let's just say what you're trying to say. You trying to say that I don't want to have no fame with the white man?
No, I just want to stay off the drama. That's all.
Hey, it's not drama.
Hi, my name is.
I'm the doctor's advocate. Nigga Dre shot you, brought me back from the dead. That's why they call him the doctor.
This is @Auteur, and welcome to another vinyl recommendation. Today I'm going to be talking about the game's Doctor's Advocate. And what sparked my interest in doing a review of an old game album is he's been doing a media run, hyping up his new album, Drillmatic, Heart vs. Soul or something. I know Drillmatic is the title. And something that has reminded me about the game, he always name drops. And this has been really apparent with him calling out Eminem a lot. And I remember when I was in high school back in the day, it seemed like his media technique was to call out Dre or talk bad about Dre, and he's been doing that recently as well. He was saying Kanye has done more for his career than Dre has done throughout his whole career. So I was just kind of interested in going back and looking at what's known as the best game album. Jesus Piece is probably my personal favorite game album, the one with Trayvon Martin on the front. I really like the intro track to that, and I just wanted to go back and look at the game. I remember everybody was listening to his music back in the day, especially It's Okay One Blood, the Junior Reed flip. Like it was a big song. I heard in a lot of locker rooms, a lot of stuff like that. But I've also heard a lot of Eminem in locker rooms. Like growing up, you'd hear like One Blood and Lose Yourself a lot. And as a kid, I always thought the game was super gangster, and it was kind of hard to differentiate between him and some other people. Like, I always thought him and 50 Cent were kind of just as gangster, stuff like that. And that was kind of who he was competing with at the time. He felt slighted that 50 was included in the Super Bowl performance and not the game. But going back and listening to his music, it kind of didn't age as well as I thought it would. The first thing I noticed about Doctor's Advocate, it seems like almost every song is following the same tired formula. And I really like this album, don't get me wrong. The Game is a great rapper. But the same issues and the same things that were wrong just kept coming up and kept pointing themselves out to me. One of the first things is the Game's really not like a street rapper. He doesn't really talk in much details. He doesn't sell me that he's a man of the streets. He talks a lot of gangster stuff, but it's like highly manufactured things, like just the same like formula repeated over and over. Not like the Boldy James and the Benny the Butchers nowadays, where they really have a lot of bars and details in their street rap. That's why I would say the Game doesn't really feel like he's coming from any personal place, unless he's talking about like a family member, like being stabbed or something. I can believe him on that stuff. Not like I don't believe him, but as far as like what he's talking about, like he's not talking a lot of street stuff. It's more just like generic gangster rap. But that's like kind of the Compton way. To go through the songs, Looking at You starts pretty strong, standard Compton intro, and it's like, alright, is this going to be the vibe of the album? And it is the whole way through. I mean, to like Compton rap, they're talking about like lowriders, they're talking about weed being fire, they're talking about like where you from, they're talking about money, album sales, Dr. Dre. Like, it's the same formula every song. The shit, very Dre inspired beat. It sounds like the Game sounds just like Dr. Dre on this album, which it's a little weird because it also seems like he's calling out Dre a bunch. And it just seems like the Game needs better themes in his music than just like name dropping other rappers and talking about being super gangster. It's Okay One Blood, I remember this being huge. This is probably my favorite song on the album. I love the Junior Reed sample. And he says some things like Snoop being #1, or like that's the king of the West Coast. I agree with that. I feel like Snoop passed that title on to like Kendrick recently. And Kendrick coming around probably didn't do the Game's career any favors. because it's kind of like there's the Dre NWA era, then there's like the Snoop Dogg era, then the Kendrick era, and the game kind of was lost in the shuffle. Compton brings a laid-back vibe. I just think, like I said, the themes are weak. He's talking about the same things every single song. Like, Kendrick had that Compton style, but he's actually talking about different things on each song. Like, there's relatable themes that change throughout the album, instead of it just being, we have the best weed on the East Coast, we have lowrider cars with the best rims, I'm super gangster blood. And like the way he talks about blood, he talks about being cool with other gangs, like Crips and stuff. And just like, he doesn't talk about any details, like he's not mentioning no blocks. Like, at least me being Midwestern, like I'm used to Chicago rappers, like we're from this block, we're from this set. The Game doesn't feel like he was ever in a set, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't sell me that he was ever on the streets. Like, maybe his family was and he was exposed to that, but the Game feels really, really manufactured. Really, really manufactured. Not to say he's not gangster, I'm not calling him fake gangster. I'm just saying, like, what he chose to rap about seemed to be the manufactured gangster rap of the time, and especially like Compton themed gave it a very niche, specific thing that he talked about in every song. Remedy has some good scratching on it. The Game's delivery just is not as timeless as I remember. He kind of just sounds like Dre, he kind of just sounds like Compton. Like, it's not standing out to me, and it just feels the same on every song. Then we go into Let's Ride. This is like a Compton song about him driving his lowrider, and he just doesn't bring an original vibe. Like, he's not even talking about the details of the car or anything, or really any bars related to it. It just feels like he's talking about being a generic West Coast rapper. And just corny bars, like, I don't even want to get into it too much. Has his best flow on the album. He kind of has better energy. Like, he probably did this one better live. But there's still just no substance, no feel, and it just doesn't feel like any real street stuff. Like, we've been spoiled in this era recently with rappers like Riggs, Boldy James, Stove God Cooks, Westside Gun, just all of Griselda, and giving us like detailed, like heartfelt street rap. Because street rap, there's a big difference in that I've been differentiating listening to this album between street rap and gangster rap. And I think I like street rap a lot more. Wouldn't Get Far. This is the song with Kanye. The vocal samples flipped way better than the rest of the album. More rhythm, more repetition, and it's relevant to the song. It's used as like a hook. And I like Kanye's flow on this. This is one of the better songs on the album, and I can attribute all of that to Kanye. Scream on 'Em. It's kind of this Lion King sample sounding scream, and the beat is kind of funny, but again, just falls into the shuffle of all the other songs. One Night, he keeps calling himself a nightmare and saying it's not a bad dream, I'm a nightmare, and that's been a theme throughout this album. That's kind of corny to me. Saying he uses rap money to put crack on and back into the hood, and this kind of highlights my point. He's just like a gangster rapper. He's not a street rapper. Like, what street rapper talks about like getting out the hood and then using his rap money to buy crack to put back in the hood? That's stupid. Like, nobody is a gangster because they want to be a gangster. Like, you wouldn't make, like, you don't make a bunch of money to say, oh yeah, now I can go sling crack. Like, what? You sling crack because you had $50 and you're from the projects, and the dude down the street has some fly shit that you never even imagined you could afford, and you go and you're like, how do I get that? How do I get the watch? How do I get the car? And he's like, hey, you just got to go meet this dude and he'll give you a 50. And then you get that 50, and then you do what they tell you to do, and you keep selling this crack until you can afford whatever the hell you wanted to afford, and then you find out in the process that it's going to take a lot more from you than just working a regular job would. But lines like this just makes me feel like he really doesn't understand like the dynamics of actually selling drugs and being from the streets and being a gangster. Not that he wasn't, it just has a very fake energy when he says stuff like, I'm going to use my rap money to put crack back into the street. Like, compare that to like Conway saying, I didn't get these chains from going platinum or gold. I got them from the packs on the road. Like, it's a different like vibe. And the Game, I think, dropped the ball on that. It just feels a little manufactured. Then we go into Doctor's Advocate, the self-titled song. And this just really like highlights the fact that the Game name drops a lot. Like a lot. Like, he's on Dre's nuts for some reason. For someone who claims he's not made He's made all his. He could have made his career without Dre. He mentions Dre an awful lot, and like just mentions all kinds. Every interview, every album, every song of the game, all he does is name drop, and I think that's a really like bad look for him because he just keeps doing it on every song. And even the title of his album is a reference to Dre. So it's like, I wish he would just give a little bit more of his own perspective, his own personality into the tracks. Because, like, I don't know who the game is. Like, I don't know what he represents besides, like, his area. Like, he's clearly inspired by Dre, and he doesn't stop mentioning Dre. He's clearly inspired by the Compton West Coast gangster lifestyle. So he's mentioning weed, rims, cars, 40s, but, like, I don't see any gang, like, what's the twist of his personality onto those things? It seems like everything he's rapping is like its environment or some manufactured idea of what it is to be a gangster. I'm not feeling anything personal from him coming through the music. Like, I don't, like, get any personality from the game, if that makes sense. Except the fact that he cares about album sales. He loves his lowriders. He doesn't need nobody, despite naming this, and this person that he doesn't need. Just he's about the hoes. Like, it's kind of generic. And we go into Old English. It's like some alcohol branded song, and they're talking about doing drive-bys in the hook, but the hook is like way too chill to be talking about doing drive-bys. And Game's flow and delivery is the same on this song, despite it being slower, which makes me feel like he just brings the same energy to every song, like he doesn't really adapt to the energy of the track. So I'm not really a fan of this one. California Vacation, like an old school sounding beat. This sounds like an Eazy-E mixed with like a Doggy Style beat, and he kind of raps over it like his generic way. Like, the Game doesn't feel like he has a patented flow, it just feels like he has a generic, like, Dre-inspired flow. And I know I'm just talking all the negative points about this, but he's brought it on himself, like the way he frames his music. And, yeah, he just talks about Dre, West Coast album sales, and then Snoop really adds nothing. The rest of these songs kind of continue with that same pattern, so I don't really even need to go into them. The last song has this repeated vocal hook that I really don't like. And, yeah, my thoughts on this album was I remember it way more fondly. I remember thinking this album was a lot more authentic than it was. The Game really shouldn't be going around saying he has more classic albums than M, because, like, I was originally going to listen to this album and compare it to, like, a Slim Shady album, and there just would be no comparison. Obviously, the Eminem album is more classic. Like, I don't even like Eminem like that. Like, I'm more excited about this new Game album than I would be a new Eminem album. But that's not to say I'm going to say the Game is more legendary than Eminem. Not by any means. Like, he doesn't have enough unique style brought to the shit to say he's better than a legend like him. So I think I thought I was going to enjoy this album more. It's still good, it's still chill, but like I skipped through it pretty, like, I was tempted to skip through it pretty hard. Like, if I was going to listen to this for enjoyment, I might just listen to, like, I'd go through and listen to It's Okay, One Blood. I'd listen to, like, Remedy. I'd listen to, give me, the one with Kanye, Wouldn't Get Far. Give me, It's Okay. Give me Remedy, and I'm good. Like, I don't really need to listen to this whole album, so I would say it was probably still one of the best albums of that year, and it was still huge for hip-hop. I just don't think it had the lasting impact of, say, like, a Kendrick album. You know? Like, this completely destroys the Game's whole career. Like, I'm just being honest. So, I don't know. Like, even Anderson .Paak. Like, this is harder than anything in that Game album. Like, not even gonna lie, Anderson .Paak's a better rapper. So, I just don't know. I don't know. I would still recommend this, but maybe just listen to those singles that I mentioned. Because I was really trying to do the Game justice and, like, give points on how he could still potentially come out with a better album than Eminem could make nowadays, but the Game just likes to name drop. I think it's marketing with him. I'm just not sure that he is as artistic as he thinks he is. So, not trying to give a negative review. This is still a recommendation, but yeah, if anybody thinks I'm missing something on the game or something original that he does, please comment, because I was really, really looking for something special in the game. Obviously, I like Jesus' Piece a lot more than this album. I think he worked with Meek Mill really well. But this album just doesn't give me anything to like praise the game on, besides just if you keep doing the same formula over and over again, eventually you're going to strike gold with songs like One Blood. So, and I attribute the success of that song to Junior Reid just as much as I do the game. It's just a lot more generic than I was remembering it. And it makes me grateful for this era of hip-hop that we live in right now, with Griselda, with Boldy James, with DJ Muggs, with Riggs, all these good names and legit hip-hop. And we'll see what the game pulls out in with his Drillmatic album.